Nah, shout out to Carlos Sainz, but I gotta talk about this right here. This Max Verstappen fella is a menace. I mean, we've been knowing this. I have so much to say and not enough time to say it. I'm probably gonna do a separate video on this to do the whole thing its full justice, but right now, we gotta talk about this mugshot right here. Outstanding penalty, like, what? I've never seen this before. When he got that first 10-second penalty, he was like,
impressive.
And when I look back, this penalty wasn't consistent at all. I think they just slammed him with a bigger penalty as a deterrent, or to make up for the countless times they've let him off in the past. But then, this incident right here, almost sending Lando to Panama, was just straight up dangerous. Like, F1 really need to bring back stop-go penalties or drive-thrus, or just straight up black flag the guy, because at some point, it's enough. Most people are fed up with this yield or crash driving style. I never thought he'd whip out the Brazil 2021 again, but here we are. And I'm not gonna lie, I was kinda annoyed we didn't get any rage. Like, come on bro, say something. But he just didn't give a toss. And you know what? It's because he knows exactly what he's doing. As long as he's screwing Lando over, the championship gets more and more safe. Looking at his pace during the final stint, Norris genuinely could have won had he not been completely terrorized. Mad Max is like his alter ego that he developed during his childhood trauma. It's like Bruce Banner and the Hulk. He just transforms whenever he needs to ruin someone else's day. But this has been long overdue. Who got that one video?
As you can see, the more you fuck around, the more you're gonna find out.
As I said before, most people have grown tired of this yield or crash style of racing. And finally, it actually got punished properly. And there's no way Christian Horner printed out telemetry, bro. These guys are so shameless. Max fans will be like, free my man, and their boys out here moving like this. We are by no means done with this topic, and we'll pick it back up in the next video. But for now, we've got a lot more to cover from the race. It's a shame for Lando that Oscar literally doesn't care about his championship campaign. The second they asked for my guy's help, he just got up and left. That little error on his final run in Q1 was enough to send him out. And from there, his race was just compromised and he finished in P8. And on a day when Verstappen is going back to factory settings, this is the day he really needs to be taking points from him. It was disappointing since he looked so good in FP3. And Andrea Stella really said afterwards that mistakes from both drivers cost them pole. I mean, yeah, true, but this is basically saying they got a skill issue. Man straight up just threw them under the bus with no shame. Although, to be fair, the standards are ridiculously high when you consider this man was watching Fernando Alonso perform miracles in the 2012 Ferrari. Now, Lando, man, listen, you're gonna need to stamp your authority with this guy, I'm not gonna lie. Otherwise, he's just gonna keep walking all over you. He just seems so naive to it all, man, and Verstappen just keeps taking advantage of it every single time. He didn't give a single damn about those penalties. If anything, they were worth receiving them as long as Norris didn't win. Had he won and Verstappen finished 4th, the points difference would have been 13, but it ended up being only 10. It's so funny as well how this best friend gimmick flies out the window whenever they're on track. The weekend started off with talk of what happened in Austin. And this man, he just starts waving the white flag. Max is the best in the world in this style of attack and defense. Like bro, come over here fam. I get being realistic, but oftentimes being delusional helps you overachieve. I mean, just look at Charles, bro. My guy still believes he can win the Drivers' Championship. And even if that might seem delusional to some, at least he's got the right mindset. In order to be the best, you first got to believe that you are the best. Now, I won't lie, watching that race as a Leclerc fan was not fun. And I should have known the vibes were off when I saw his mechanic doing this. Starting 4th wasn't any help, even though the last couple times he won from there, but Mexico is a track that favors drivers starting in 3rd. And for some reason, he just struggled all weekend. Overall, it was a mess, and he was mad as hell too. After qualifying, he was actually horrified at the thought of being slower than his teammate. And to add to his woes, the FIA are probably going to give him community service. Anyways, Carlos put together the annual masterclass. From the moment qualifying started, he was on fire. And in the race, clinical. Threw it up the inside of Max to reclaim the lead and ran off into the sunset. And I don't know about you, but I'm very happy for Carlos. He deserved one last win before leaving Ferrari. Although things didn't come without some drama. Early on in the first stint, Sainz and Leclerc were 1 and 2. Charles started applying some pressure, then Carlos was like, he's taking the piss. And the team asked Leclerc to back off. In the end, I don't think he had the pace to win anyway, but still. Maybe Ferrari could have thought about the driver's title, but realistically, that ain't gonna happen. Especially when he's that far down. As I've said many times before, that rough patch from Canada to Silverstone pretty much undid everything. And whatever happens from now will probably be too little, too late. Plus, this is Ferrari we're talking about. In all circumstances, the team comes first. So, it was never going to be up for debate. Now coming back to Carlos, Williams are really getting a quality driver next year. Maybe James Vowles was onto something with his best driver lineup on the grid comment. His future teammate Alex Albon had a bittersweet weekend. Coming off the back of a dismal weekend in Austin, things were looking even more spooky when he crashed into Ollie Behrman for literally no reason and then called him an idiot. It is a shame though that he retired on lap 1. He pretty much couldn't do anything. And after brilliantly qualifying P9, he could have secured a great result. but unfortunately, Tsunoda was overambitious. This was a weekend to forget for him, crashing on Saturday and Sunday, and with Red Bull keenly looking at Lawson, Yuki is most likely going to be in that AlphaTauri V-Cup Toro Rosso machine for the rest of his life. And if you thought Max was a menace, Liam was just a straight up bully. This kid was dancing on Checo's grave without a care in the world. Like seriously, how is Max getting a 20-second penalty and Perez still finishing miles behind him? For Checo fans these days, it ain't easy. You ask this man to formulate another excuse as to why he was so slow, he would just start stuttering like this.
Bro, damn.
Anyways, these guys are dicing back and forth, right? And Checo thought he was gonna have an easy ride, but nah. Liam has that dog in him. They were going blow for blow, and he came out on top in the slower car. While overtaking the Mexican towards the end, Lawson pulls out the middle finger on him at his home race. I can't lie, that one there was a violation. Personally, I wouldn't have it. This is now the second time in 2 races he started beef with another driver. And this time around, he took things to another level. Like, this is crazy disrespectful, but also kinda dumb. Cause this is the seat you're trying to secure for next year. Like, imagine showing up to a job interview and you instantly start dissing one of the existing employees. In the real world, you're not getting hired if that happens. But knowing Red Bull, they'll probably let it slide for him. But at the same time, if that was Yuki, I'm just saying, you'd be hearing things like childish, anger issues, foul-mouthed, etc, etc, etc. So I'm just highlighting that double standards exist. In other news, water is wet. And while we're on the topic of stating the obvious, Danica Patrick is the least insightful commentator I've ever listened to.
Long run down here into turn 1. Obviously, this is fast section here.
Oh my God! Wow!
The only thing that went wrong for Liam was that he collided with Colapinto, who once again impressed with a P12 finish. Points are relatively hard to come by now for Williams since the 2 Haas cars are now best of the rest. Once again, Komatsu, I tip my hat to you, sir. Double points with Magnussen in P7 and Hulkenberg in P9. Looking back, I'm kinda gonna miss this duo. Kevin only seems to be getting into his stride now, but unfortunately, it's a bit too late for anyone to start changing their minds. It's good that he's driving so well though, and generally just enjoying himself. What would be a cool send-off to his career is if he finished on the podium in Abu Dhabi, because that would mean that the first and last race of his career would be his only 2 podiums in Formula 1. But for that to happen, actually let's face it, it's not happening. What's also not happening is points for Sauber. I know I made this prediction a few weeks ago, but that was hoping for the impossible. Making it into Q2 with Bottas was a massive overachievement, because in the race, these guys were nowhere again. Ocon managed to beat them from the pit lane, his teammate Gasly was able to scrape a point as well after a great qualifying, and the Mercedes, well, not much really happened for them. They just looked completely lost. George had a heavy crash in FP2, and now they're in trouble with the budget cap. Kimi ran over a piece of metal, meaning Lewis's car had already lost performance for the entire weekend before we'd even got to qualifying. And speaking of Kimi's real quick, Robin Raikkonen in his first international championship went from P22 to P5. Yeah, I'm calling it now. He's going to be the 2040 world champion. You heard it here first. In the Grand Prix, Mercedes were nowhere in comparison to the frontrunners, and were just fighting amongst themselves. Lewis came out on top whilst also running those dreaded upgrades. George also sustained some front wing damage which cost him some pace. Thinking about it now, 4th and 5th was actually a great result, all things considered. Lewis said he managed to collect some good data on the upgrades, something Mercedes have been drooling about over the past 3 seasons in a row, reminding me why I'm so glad he's leaving, because he's done more than enough experimenting. But something I found funny though is the interviews heading into the weekend. They asked him, so this is Fernando's 400th race. Do you see yourself reaching that milestone? He then says, I'm gonna be here longer than Lando. And initially I start celebrating. But then, the more I think about it, the more I realized this is personal. And I think Fernando will also want to outlast Lewis. At what point do these uncles just let it go and call truce, man? Probably never, to be fair. We so desperately need one last head-to-head for the championship between them, in like 2026 or something. But can you imagine, after 20 plus years of not winning a championship, Alonso loses the title to Hamilton of all people by 1 point. The crash out would be generational. Fernando didn't get to see the end of his 400th race, which kinda sums up his entire career. Just criminally unlucky. Now, dare I say Ferrari are contenders for the Constructors' Championship. I mean, these past 2 races, they've been on a different level, and they're now only 29 points away from moving ahead of McLaren. Max will probably end up winning this Drivers' Championship, with Red Bull finishing 3rd in the Constructors. And that just goes to show, Perez needs to go. His contributions to this year's championship have been like this guy's spin kick. Oh yeah, I also forgot this dude false started. Like he really thought we weren't going to notice him starting this far beyond his box. He's trying to do his best impersonation of Bianca Bustamante. Going into next year, if they keep him, they're going to end up 4th if the field remains as competitive as it is. The car's race pace looked quite worrying though. The only thing that's really going to save Verstappen is if McLaren and Ferrari keep taking points away from each other, which is looking likely. The The fact that those two teams are so similarly matched as well makes things so difficult for whoever's trying to take the title away from Max, be it Lando or Charles. The more likely candidate is obviously Norris, but I just don't feel he has that X factor just yet. Like, he's still way too nice to Max, even after multiple occasions where he's shown no respect on track. And when given opportunities like securing P3, the ideal starting position in Mexico with that long run down to turn 1, there's always an if attached to the scenario. It's frustrating to watch, but kind of been the story of his season. Maybe I'm being too pessimistic, I don't know. It's definitely not completely over, but the chances of it happening are getting slimmer and slimmer every race. Anyway, let's see what Brazil brings us. Luckily, we don't have to wait that long to find out, and in the meantime, I'm going to be farming content throughout the week. So be sure to look out for another video soon. If you enjoyed this one, be sure to drop a like, share it around with friends, and subscribe to the channel if you're new to get my latest videos in the future. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.